All right, everybody. What is going on? Can you hear me okay? So we just had quite a chapter. I don't know why I'm talking like it's the start of a chapter review, but I feel like we should just let it sink in for a second, right? This chapter is pretty insane. Because Monday, we were talking about possibilities for Bonnie's origin. And I wrote off, I was like, it's not rape. I was just like, there's no way, like, this is a shonen series. Obviously, Oda didn't show it, but it's what happened. I was just like, there's no way it's gonna go that dark. It feels like outside the ballpark of what Oda would kind of explicitly spell out for us. Background stuff is coming. Don't worry about background stuff. It'll all go up at once. Hopefully Monday, it'll all be there. Yeah. Bruna Cabral, thank you very much. Yeah. She got the Griffith treatment. Yeah. Caleb Brown says, do you think this could be the saddest backstory? Yeah, I think this is. I think this is already pretty much there. Right? I think this is the darkest that One Piece has gone. There's different ways you can define saddest backstory, because, like, Brook's backstory is really, really sad, but because it happens in it goes by really quick when you're reading it, because it's all one big montage, it moves by really quickly. It doesn't make me feel quite as emotionally strong as, like, Nami's backstory, even though you could probably argue that Brooks is objectively sadder, right? I mean, it's hard to compare certain things, right? I think traumatic experiences as a child are more significant, but still, what happened to Brooke is insane. What's a better example? I guess what I'm saying is that, like, certain things can be really, really sad, but a lot of it comes down to how well is it communicated through the story, right? But I think Kuma's is hitting both sides of it, which is, it's a really, really objectively sad series of events, and we're really going through it, right? I don't feel like this is rushed at all. I felt like the scenes with Kuma and Jinny, with Jinny's death and the church scene, I think that was just one of the most somber. I'm going to talk about it more in the chapter review. Maybe I'll talk about it a bit here, but there's several reasons why I feel like that was a very different, like, Oda's done plenty of really tragic moments, but the way he did that was very different. And I think it's always really cool to see an author this late in the game in terms of writing the story introduce or take a stab at directing a scene or writing a scene in a different manner, because he's done tragic backstories like a million times over, but the way that he did the church scene was very, very different. Maybe very is a strong word, but it was definitely different than his usual style, and I feel like that works for the simple fact that what he's doing here in this chapter, the subject matter of the chapter, is a lot more real and just messy than anything that he's done in the past. So I thought this, I don't know, is Kuma's backstory the saddest? Like, I think it kind of is. I think it is. This chapter also made me cry while reading it, which has not happened to me with a One Piece chapter. Like, One Piece chapters have made me tear up. Like, there's been moments that have made me tear up. But, straight up, like, actually crying over the course of the chapter, I think this is the first time it's happened since, like, Whitebeard's death, for me personally. Like, generally straight up crying. I don't think I can recall that from a One Piece chapter in, like, a long time. But other moments have made me tear up. Like, reading the first chapter of his flashback did make me tear up. Alright, let me catch up on some supers real quick. Cigar Verk, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 13 months. Celestial dragons are transmitting disease. That's why they're in astronaut suits, and the mortal ones don't need suits. That's a crazy interesting theory. But then the thing is, like, we don't really see this with other slaves, but maybe other slaves aren't made into their wives, their spouses. Hmm. Let me take a look at this chapter again. I want to read something real quick. Um, hold on. Just seeing one thing real quick. Yeah, I don't know how often that happens, but that's a really great theory. Yeah, it's not just Oda adding rape into the story, like D-Boss 580 saying Oda adding rape into the story is shocking. It's not just that, it's the way that the place that he included it. It's not like an offhand, like it's not something that's subtly implied or anything like that. Or it's not even like a lot of people say it happened to Boa, and it probably did. Um, but with Boa, we can kind of overlook it. With Jinny, it's just so heartbreaking because of the full context that he puts it in, which is we get to see Jinny as a kid, you know, an upbeat, free-spirited kid, bonding with Kuma, growing up. She's such a, such a life force. And then she's gone for a bit, and then we just see her after, I don't know, just the who it happened to, and the context in which it happened, and the fact that she dies afterwards. There's just a lot going on there that I don't know, that makes it especially brutal. So it's not only like he wrote that into One Piece, but he went all like, obviously you can't show anything happening and it still has to be implied, but this is the worst, like, this is with that restriction imposed on the subject matter, this is still just about the darkest you can go with it. Catching up on supers real quick. Straw Choco, thanks for the 5. Remember when I said Celestial Dragon claps Ginny's cheeks, Kuma steals Baby Bonnie, and you said no shot, and chat said I was weird for suggesting that? I was kind of right. I don't know if people said you were weird. What I specifically remember is there was somebody several streams back who said that Jinny was raped to death by a Celestial Dragon. That's what stands out. And I think everybody thought that was really weird. I don't remember your thing specifically. The last time I remember the rape scenario being brought up was Monday's stream. And I went back and looked at that, and all I said was that I think that's too dark. I don't think Oda would go there in a shonen, something along those lines. And then I just left it at that. And I don't think anybody in chat was like saying it's weird. Some people believed it, so I don't know. But props to you if you called it. Bruno Cabral, we got this. J. Moray Eel, thanks for the 2. Turning all blue in the light of the sun. Oh, that's interesting. That would be a really interesting little connection, because I also think that all blue is connected to the One Piece and all that stuff. I mean, I think destruction of the red line, which is like bringing the sun, like bringing the dawn to the world, etc. I think that also leads to the all blues. That is a really, really cool little connection there that you just pointed out. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Can we get the image of Kuma, I'm not the stepdad, I'm the dad that stepped up, as the thumbnail for the chapter review? We can't do that for the thumbnail of the chapter review because memes usually, in my experience, just putting the character's face is the best way to to get people for the chapter review. But that is who Kuma is. I mean, Kuma's done so many other heroic sacrificial things that this is just like another small thing to add to the list. Like, in the grand scheme of things, he's done so many things that this is just, it's not a small thing to add to the list, but it's just so par for the course for him at this point. Legio Panda says the comment was about Kuma's mom. Thanks for reminding me. That was the context. That's right. And you know what? Actually, maybe that guy was right. Who knows? We shouldn't have clowned on him. I shouldn't have clowned on him. That guy might have been right. For all we know. That's possible now. It's possible. Alright, yeah. DW Crow says, thanks for the 5. Mr. Morj says, Oda won't go that dark. Oda says, hold my beer. Yeah, man. I think a huge part of it is just him going to another level than I think I could have imagined he would have gone. Bruno Cabral says, Morj, I missed my super. Just put it again. Don't like donate again. I'm saying just comment it again and I'll catch it. probably. Just put it, if you put it now, I'll catch it. While I'm waiting on that, let me just read. Justin Hohen, thanks for the 5. Maybe Kuma predicts that Luffy's unpredictability would cause Sanji and Ivankov to meet, among other things, when sending him to Amazon Lily. So, I'll just talk briefly about that, the way Kuma sent characters to the islands. I think that at the end of the day, you do have to blur logic a little bit, because, yeah, Kuma knew that, Kuma couldn't have known that Ivankov would be breaking out so soon. At the same time, Kuma's ultimately sending... It's more like sending Sanji to his best friend's house, right? So at some point, Ivankov's going to show up there, and then, things will be... Like, Ivankov's going to break out. Ivankov's plan was always to break out. Ivankov even implied that he could break out a long time ago, but just didn't because it wasn't time yet, right? It was even said that there was somebody who could create tunnels that helped them set up the space for New Kama Land, and that was Morley. So Ivankov probably could have gotten out of Impel Down a long time ago. So Kuma basically sent, Sanji to Kamagabaka Kingdom for safekeeping, right? He can't get him directly to Ivankov. He's not going to send Sanji to Impel Down, so he sent him to Kamagabaka Kingdom. Ivankov will show up there eventually. If it's not this year, maybe it's sometime soon. Caleb Brown says, I think we clowned on him because of how he said it. Yeah, it was very, very blunt. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200. Javon Johnson says, thanks for the 5. One of the most jaw-dropping chapters of One Piece I've ever read, man. I can't believe this. It was crazy. It was crazy. And I even saw little bits and pieces of spoilers, like, because people were tagging me. People were fucking tagging me being like, because we talked about this Monday, like, what's Bonnie's origin and stuff, and people were tagging me being like heavily implying, like, it what, like, that thing that guy said, like, the thing that Morj said it wouldn't be, or the thing that Morj's chat said that it wouldn't be, that's what it was. And it was just like, don't tag me in the, like, just wait till Wednesday and then you can tag me in this or something like that. Like, why do you gotta tag me when the spoilers are coming out? And this is what people who like spoilers don't understand. It doesn't matter if you don't share the spoilers. All it takes is some percentage of spoiler readers to share the spoilers and to not have that social consciousness. That's all that matters, which is why it would just be better if spoilers didn't exist. I still think that it's crazy that even me knowing, like, I went into the chapter knowing basically that, okay, likely Jinny was raped, right? Even knowing that, it didn't change the fact that me reading the chapter, it still hit really, really hard because of how Oda did her final thoughts, her final words, her final actions, the final scene with Kuma, etc., the flashbacks, etc. So I can't imagine how hard it would have hit if I didn't know at all, but I did because people have limited self-control. Not a Pro 64, thanks for the 5. If the stones are an STD, that one chatter, the one, was 100% right somehow, but it could be Saturn. Ushioni can give disease. So there's a few thoughts that I've had about this, which is just like, okay, so let me throw this out. And I'll probably talk about this in the chapter review too. But we know, here's the things that we know, right? We know that Kuma at some point chooses to give up his mind and body slowly to the Celestial Dragons. He will likely start this process very soon because, as we understand, I think Jinny is, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jinny is 10 at the time of pre-time skip, right? 10 years old, which means that 5 years from now, like in this next 5-year span, Kuma is likely going to slowly start the modification process on his bodies, right? So he's going to make a deal with the Celestial Dragons in some way soon. So, going by that logic, my assumption would be that Kuma ultimately, he got this disease, he realizes that Bonnie got this disease likely from the Celestial Dragons, so he would have to go to Marijoa to strike up some sort of a deal with them to get the cure for Bonnie's illness, right? Is this following so far? Because we know that there's some reason or the other Kuma had to make a deal with the Celestial Dragons. I assume that Bonnie was the cause. I did that video on it like way back when, talking about how Kuma likely gave up his mind, body, etc. because of Bonnie. And this disease seems like the biggest factor. However, if that's the case, the one hole in this is just like, then why wouldn't the Celestial Dragons just cure Bonnie or cure Jinny themselves? Like, if you're a Celestial Dragon, maybe it's Saturn even, right? wife gets sick, if it's an easy fix, you could just do it. Now you could say, well, Morj, the Celestial Dragons don't care enough about Jinny or a slave to cure an illness that she got. But it's like, if it's really easy, wouldn't they just cure their slave so their slave doesn't die? Or I guess maybe I'm overthinking the value the Celestial Dragons would have. Like, he made her his wife, so I'm just like, wouldn't the Celestial Dragon... Like, if you make the slave your wife, then obviously you still don't value them as a person, but, like, if they get an illness that you can cure in an instant, wouldn't you just cure it? Especially if it's Saturn's Devil Fruit power. You get what I'm saying? Tala's saying, because Jinny's not worth that easy fix for them. I guess, but it's just like... See, if it was a slave, I'd get it, but it's like, it's their wife now, right? So doesn't that change things a little bit? Jose Laurie says, why would they care about their slaves? I'm saying because, like, he wifed him. Or wifed her, right? Like, let's say... Okay, and especially if it's Saturn, right? If you wife them... If you wife Jinny, and it's like, oh, I'm getting an illness from being around you, wouldn't Saturn just, like, take a glance over and fix it? If that's not the case, then, you know, I guess they care too little even for someone that they wife. Like, in my mind, I'm like, if you wife them, wouldn't you, like, want to keep them around like a pet or something like that? Like, that's all I'm thinking. But if we take that out of the equation, we're like, well, no, they wouldn't care enough, then I think what I'm saying makes sense, right? We say the whole thing would then basically be, Kuma concludes that the illness stems from Morj, therefore he has to go to Morj to barter with the Celestial Dragons to be able to fix this. So therefore Kuma goes to the Celestial Dragons to attempt to fix this. They're like, okay, we'll do it, but you have to give up, you know, your mind, your body, do all that stuff, right? And then that's just the way it goes. Does that make sense? Right? Does that make sense? I think that's what we see next chapter. The turnaround is too soon to bother saving it for a theory video, so figured I'd just share it with you guys here. But I feel like this makes sense, right? Bonnie has illness stemmed from Morj. Kuma goes to Morj. Kuma's like, please save my daughter. They're like, we'll do it, but we're evil, so we'll do it at a huge cost. You have to do this, and this, and be our lab experiment, and let Vegapunk do experiments and shit on you. All that stuff. And then they cure it. Does that make sense? Jack D. Slime says maybe he goes to Vegapunk first. Yeah, maybe. This is just me taking a shot at it. This was what I thought after reading it. Alright, moving along. Fatingo, thanks for the 5. Can we discuss the elephant in the room and address the art situation? This is the first time that chapter comes out in this unfinished state, yeah? I don't think that's an elephant in the room because the shading, like, the only reason that I think I might be wrong down the line, but I think that there's a pretty simple explanation for why the art was unfinished this chapter, which is that Oda went really, really hard with the shading in this chapter, extremely hard on the shading this chapter, because every scene that he does with Kuma that's meant to be a sort of, you know, poetic scene or whatever, Oda does the sun rays and everything like that, and this chapter was filled with that. And then especially obviously the scene where he's kneeling in the church with Jinny. You can rest now, Jinny, I swear I'll raise her well. That scene, right, with the big cross and everything like that, the full shot of the church. That panel has a lot more shading, focus on light and shadow, than anything that Oda normally does. Same with the following panel. Just in general, this chapter has quite a bit of that, and you can especially see with the church panel, it's so outside of Oda's usual wheelhouse. Normally he doesn't really give a shit about any of that. Like, I don't really expect a ton of light and shadow work in One Piece, nowhere near this extent. So the reality is that it's not like Oda was unable to put in his full artistic ability in this chapter. Rather, it seems more so like he really, really, really wanted this chapter to be as beautifully done as possible, but that involved stepping outside of his usual wheelhouse drawing wise, which meant that he spent significantly more time on certain panels that he wanted just right which in turn means that certain panels he had to take a bit of a shortcut on, and he was unable to finish. I feel like that's fairly, to me, that's a fairly straightforward interpretation. I mean, we've read One Piece for hundreds of chapters. We know what Oda's standard art level is. He does not go this hard on shading, pretty much ever. If you put extra time into something, other time, like, you're losing time somewhere else. He probably just could not finish certain parts of the chapter because he went hard at other parts of the chapter. I don't think it's something to worry about. If it becomes a trend, then I'll redact what I say and say I was wrong. I was being too optimistic. But at the moment, I don't think it's something to worry about. Because, like, you can look at the unfinished artwork and be like, oh, that's a problem. But then you can look at the other panels and be like, oh, that's above the usual standard for One Piece. So, I tend to look at that. And holy shit, let me acknowledge this first real quick. Thank you so much, Philly. I appreciate the 50. I hope you enjoyed the chapter, man. I assume you did. People who call Dragon a fraud don't seem to realize he's trying to fight a government that has been in power for 800 years. He can't throw away all his progress because he lost someone close to him. He's not Luffy, and he shouldn't have to be. I also, like, I think that is a... Who here has followed me for some period of time and knows that I have slandered Dragon plenty in the past for being unable to differentiate the truth from very, very basic grade A newspaper propaganda, as we saw in the Sabo situation. I've slandered Dragon in the past. This is not something to slander him for. I don't think. Because it's just like, Dragon, yeah, he's not Luffy. He's not. Dragon seems to be written like a much more hard-assed, like, serious, like, hard-assed, less emotional figure. It seems like he really is, like, a more serious revolutionary figure that's being written into the One Piece world, right? I think it doesn't help that he's been shown to seem like somewhat easily thrown off or easily agitated or made to sweat easily, as people say. You know, like, he gets shaken easily, at least it seems like from certain moments, but I don't know if Oda's putting that much thought into it as much as we readers are. But in general, I can see there's lots of little things adding up over time that make Dragon seem less competent, because at a certain point, we're waiting on the moment that he seems competent, which has just never come at any point in the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, with Dragon, he's been doing this for years and years and years. Now that we're finally getting to see him in action in the story, at no point has he ever done anything tactically impressive, you know, combat-wise impressive, and just in terms of his natural, like, emotional state, he's supposed to be this, like, cold, badass-looking dude, but then we see him, like, sweating and thrown off and confused all the fucking time, right? So, it's not that Dragon's a fraud, I just think that there's not a lot going for him yet in the story. So I understand why people underestimate him. I will say, in defense of this moment, was Jinny ever... Let me double check. Was Jinny like a top commander? I forget. She was, right? Something like that? Was Jinny a tip-top commander or something? I don't think so, right? What the hell's going on here? Sorry, I misclicked some stuff. Let me see. Jinny was... Still lacking funds, something. Oh, she's a captain of the Revolutionary Army's Eastern Forces. Is she a captain or like a top commander or something like that? I don't know. Either way, I think that the Revolutionary Army, I think it just functions differently. I think it functions like a real Revolutionary Army and not like a crew, like a family crew, like the Straw Hat Pirates, right? It's a worldwide organization. I don't think that they're treating it like a war. Character dies, character is caught, character is captured. It's just the way it is, right? They're not gonna, like, think about it this way. Okay, I want you guys to think about it this way, all right, with Dragon. So you guys are upset that Dragon and the Revolutionary Army did not storm Morjua to fight a Celestial Dragon, right? To take Jinny back from the Celestial Dragons, right? You guys are upset that Dragon and the Revolutionary Army did not declare war and just go up to Morjua and storm the place and take back Jinny, right? Because she's their friend. Do you realize that the Revolutionary Army is fighting to free all the slaves up there, right? Every single slave up there is the goal of the Revolutionary Army. In fact, it would be morally worse if they were like, oh wait, now that our friend Jinny is gone, now we actually have to take action and go directly up to Morj and fight them and get her back. No, they're not like the Strahds. The Strahds are selfish. They're like, we don't give a fuck about most people, but we're going to go fight for our friend. Like, if our friend is taken, we'll go get them back. The Revolutionary Army has been fighting for decades to free everybody up there. It does not matter and should not matter whether or not they lose somebody that happens to be close to them, because Jinny's life should not be any more valuable than any of the other slaves up there. So if they're taking the time to do things right, to get their army together, to build their forces, to one day launch one single assault that can free the world, then that is the right path and they should do that. And there's no reason that they should throw all of that away to selfishly go save one person that happens to be close to them. That's insane. So, Dragon's not a fraud. Now that I'm thinking about it, they're doing the morally right thing by not placing Jinny's life in some sort of elevated pedestal above all the other people that are already slaves being held by the Celestial Dragons. Think about it like that. Somebody clip that and put that on Twitter, because that needs to be retweeted or something like that. Because the more I think about it, I feel like the dragon slander, while warranted in many places, in this chapter is not, and people are trying to put Luffy mentality onto Dragon, when Dragon is just like a much more smart, smart dude that is actually aiming to get shit done, whereas Luffy will recklessly do things that can hurt people, can help people, but usually only people close to him, and usually positive consequences will come out of that, but it's not like you don't want Luffy's type of thinking at the head of a huge army or like worldwide revolution. Oh, let's get the likes up to 200 real quick. Bruno Cabral, thanks for the 10. I'm sorry, I fucking missed your chat. There's a lot of chats. I stopped looking. Thanks for the 10. I'm sorry you had to message again. You said in a stream fans would do mental gymnastics to justify Bonnie's fan service. All that comes to mind right now is Sylvan. I haven't seen this. When your friend watches a sus anime, you think a Holy Knight might be the dad. We're just not going to talk about the Bonnie situation right now because it's just that's something to discuss at a later date. I know that sounds bad, but I feel like in this moment when there's something just so much more significant and like in Story Dark that happened, I feel like we can take the time to just talk and focus on that. The Bonnie situation, the age thing, we'll talk about that later. I don't know if that's a fair answer or not. I don't know if that's a cop-out, but we can talk about that later. There can be a separate time to talk about that. And I do think that fans will do mental gymnastics to justify it. I think the one loophole that Oda's got here is if it's specifically explained how the age fruit works, right? And if it's specifically explained that the age fruit ages you up mentally as well. So when we're looking at Bonnie at age 24 or whatever, it is literally Bonnie at age 24. It's just like transporting her into the future, essentially. That's the one loophole. Because, for example, Momonosuke talks about, he's like, I'm like this, like 28 years old or something, but I have the mind of an 8-year-old, right? If it's established clearly and explicitly that with Bonnie, it's like, no, she's literally being turned into an adult. This is what Bonnie would be like, think like, etc. if she had the mind of a 28-year-old adult, then I think that's a loophole, right? Because we tend to accept other things. Like, we accept, like, in stories, like, if a clone is created of somebody else and the clone is created to be like if in any story, like, if you have a clone or something like that happen, then you kind of just go by, like, what the mental age of the clone is, right? Even if the clone was created yesterday, if the clone is created to be a 28-year, like the clone of a 28-year-old person, you don't view the clone as basically like a 1-year-old infant. You know what I mean? If the clone has the mind, capacity, etc., of the age that they've been turned into, then you just view them as that, right? That's the standard for pretty much any story that I can think of. So with Bonnie, if the age fruit is established as being accelerating her mind and her biology and everything to the point of like, this is what she would be like if she's 24 years old or something, that's fine, because then you're just looking at a 24-year-old person, basically, right? But I don't know if that's the case, because there's literally no way to know until Oda establishes yes or no. No, there's a difference between mental age versus physical age. I'm saying that if it ages you up mentally to be what you would be like, like if it's literally turning her into the future version of herself or something, right? If it's turning her like transforming her mind in the same as her body, because again, like the like I think you can look at any story clone logic. The same thing applies, right? If a clone is created, you don't view them as like a 1-year-old, whatever. You view them based on like what their mental age is at. So that's the only way that I view it as like a possible loophole out of this, but it would have to be explained very, very, very explicitly that that's the case. If it's like Momonosuke, where it's actually just Bonnie's mind, but her body's physically changing, like I think that's like there's not really anything to say in defense of that. As for could a Holy Knight be the dad? I don't know. I feel like Saturn or someone is the most interesting possibility, but I don't know. Daniel Allen, thanks for the 5. Bonnie Frustrad is back. Yeah, definitely, because now she could be Cabin Girl or something in theory. Also, did you see the Last Airbender live action trailer? It actually looks great. No, I did not see the live action trailer. I didn't know the trailer's out. I thought it was just cast. Hawkins, thanks for the 2. Saturn is Bonnie's dad, would add to current events. Yeah, I think that's very possible. It adds to the Ushioni disease stuff that people are talking about. I don't know. AA says then why Vegapunk says she's just a kid. That's true. That's true. JK Kane says Morj says let's talk about this later and then talks about it. Yeah, I shouldn't have broached it at all, honestly. That's my bad. But it's something that ultimately has to be talked, like, it's something that has to be talked about. I'm like, okay, call me biased, but maybe I'm giving Oda some level of benefit of the doubt. I'm like, maybe there's something that could be explained here as to how the fruit works that would justify this, but there most likely isn't. And I understand that even the explanation that I gave is fairly tenuous. And as AAA says, then why Vegapunk says she's just a kid, that is not a good look either, obviously, at all. So, yeah. It's not a good sign. Christian Barraza, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 6 months. I'd like to see Kuma smile in the present as a callback to Sindri from Thriller Bark, that the self is more than the soul and that the body remembers. I think he will. I think that he will have... I think he dies, personally, and I think that'll be very tragic, but in One Piece, a lot of these tragic character deaths will also have a little silver lining the way that they go out. I imagine Kuma will have some sort of effective sacrifice, and, you know, Ace died smiling. A lot of these characters tend to die smiling, no matter how sad their death is, and Sindri's a great reference here. I do think that Kuma, we know he's got some level of will still left, because why is he doing what he's doing? Therefore, if he's got some level of will left, then I think that he will be able to go out a little bit happy, being able to see most likely Nika, you know, in the flesh or something like that. Happy to see Bonnie being freed or something like that. I think that we will get to see a slightly happy Kuma at the end. It'll just be sad overall because he will likely have to die. Fading Phase, thanks for the 5. Been seeing a lot of dragon hate since this chapter. Can you try to justify why he didn't rescue Jinny from the world government for 2 years? I did just go on a very elaborate tangent on it. I think you can rewind maybe 5-10 minutes to catch it, but I'm not going to go through it all again. I hope you're able to catch it. C Miller, thanks for the 2. You should watch latest Jujutsu Kaisen episode and Yuji versus Chozo. I do want to watch I am going to binge the entire Shibuya incident, that's for sure. I'm definitely going to binge it. I don't feel like watching it week to week, but I will definitely binge it. And it's getting close to what my favorite part of the Shibuya incident was. So, yeah, you know, I'll watch it when it's all close to wrapping up. Let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Nolan Nguyen. This is fucked up because I know how to. It's some crazy. That's a Vietnamese last name that I've seen a million times over. It's a very common one. I've learned how to pronounce it and then I've forgotten every time. So I'm sorry. Do you think Saturn could be the father of Bonnie since Saturn's gemstone is a sapphire and the rock that grew on Jinny and Bonnie is blue? Saturn's gemstone is a sapphire? Oh, I think I saw that. I think somebody tagged me about something like that. That fits even better. Okay, so picture coming together. I think the picture that's coming together, let's say Saturn, like Jinny caught Saturn's eye, which is really fucking weird because Saturn literally saw Jinny as a child at God Valley, if you guys remember. Like, Saturn was there as a fucking old-ass dude and when Jinny was like a little kid at God Valley. Then Jinny grows up, Saturn, let's say Jinny catches Saturn's eye, Saturn kidnaps her. Just being with Saturn gives Jinny this disease. She dies. Bonnie now has this disease. Kuma realizes he has to fix the disease. He's like, well, I have to go back to its origin. He goes to Morj, strikes a deal with Saturn. Will you please cure Bonnie of this disease, and I'll do whatever you ask for. Right? That's, yeah. That's basically, I think that's basically what segues into current events. Does that make sense? I feel like that follows, right? Feels like that's the most likely route. I guess we'll see next chapter. Cigarverk, thanks for the 5. I can see Saturn being Dragon hype tool now. I don't know why no one mentioned it, but Saturn looks the same at God Valley. Immortality, question mark. Was it already assumed? Yeah, I think that's already assumed. I don't know if we're going to get to see Dragon fight in this flashback, unless you mean at Egghead Dragon will show up, but I think it's important that Luffy is the hero of Egghead for Kuma and Bonnie's sake. If you mean in the flashback Dragon will show up to fight Saturn, I don't know if Dragon's going to make that move, but it would be cool. It would end a lot of fraud allegations. DW Crow, thanks for the 5. Kuma worshipped the sun god his whole life, only for the sun to kill Jinny and plague his daughter. Holy shit, yeah. I do like the fact that it is tied to the sun, because it just, the sun symbolically is so important, and the way that, like, the irony of the whole situation, right? Sun, freedom, etc., but then now the sun is basically her prisoner and her jailer. It is pretty fucked up. Taka Di Fraca, thanks for the 5. The scale disease makes me think of dragons. You think there's a relation? Interesting would like to. The scale disease makes me think of dragons. I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. Yansa Valentine, thanks for the 5. What is your opinion on Dragon? I don't want to go through this again. I'll just say it one more time just briefly. Which is that I don't think he's a fraud for not going after, like, not declaring war against the world government just for Jinny, because their entire goal is to free everybody, all the slaves up there, and everybody in the world. So why would they sacrifice that for just somebody that happens to be also part of their organization? I think that'd be pretty fucked up if you were to jeopardize everything that they've been working for the sake of everybody. Like, by that logic, it's just like, why not just go, like, declare all out war on Morj now to free the slaves that are suffering there now? Why would you wait for Jinny to be captured there? You get what I'm saying? Because otherwise then it's not really about doing what's right. It's just about your personal, people that you happen to be personally caring about, right? So Dragon's doing what's best for everybody in this case, right? It basically, whether or not Jinny is captured, Kuma is captured, Ivankov is captured, Sabo is captured, none of that should really change Dragon and the Revolutionary Army's methods and the way that they're going about their plan, if they're aiming for maximum effectiveness to save everybody. Because with the Revolutionary Army, again, they're not a pirate crew, right? Pirate crews are out for themselves. It's all for we're the ones that we're looking out for each other, right? Revolutionary Army, they're fighting for a greater cause, right? A greater good. They've given their life for something bigger than themselves, in theory, right? So, it's a soldier in arms, obviously, getting captured, and that's terrible, but you're not fighting every day for the sake of that soldier. You're fighting for the people that you're trying to save, right? That's the goal. So it's just a totally different situation. Jack D Slime says Morj for the. I saw people saying Nguyen is the pronunciation. So wait, let me double check that. When is what I see. Win or when. All right, good to know. Thanks, I appreciate it. Let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Not an NPC. Seems suspicious. Thanks for the 10. Just joined stream. Sorry if I missed this. Do you think Dragon is a fraud? God damn it, dude. No. I hope you caught what I just said. Luffy, for not going to save Jinny, Luffy and Garp both would have went, and I say this as a Dragon fan. Still a 10 out of 10 chapter. No, I do not hold that against Dragon because Revolutionary Army goals are different. Revolutionary Army, it's for the people. It's not just for your buddies. It's again, same logic goes. Why would they suddenly decide to, like, if they're working to free all the slaves up there, why would they suddenly decide that they gotta expedite their plan or just do it right away because Jinny is up there now? Why should Jinny's life have more value than the slaves that they're already trying to save? Philly, oh no, we covered this. Shriek Pulipaka, thanks for the 5. I dreamt I was in NYC for an event, but it turned out to be God Valley, and we had to escape the FIDI in 3 weeks or be eaten by the Celestial Dragons. That's funny. Isn't there an anime con or something going on in NYC? Or a convention or something like that going on in NYC very soon? Like this weekend or something? I think it's like this weekend. Forget what the date was. It's an interesting dream. That is a scary dream. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Ginny's escape lines up with Fisher Tiger's raid. So she got, I think I saw somebody on Twitter saying that it's off by a year or something like that. So she got sick and left when she had Bonnie. Might have gotten cured, but better life for her daughter. I think I saw somebody say it was off by a year or something like that, but I might be wrong. I didn't actually do the math myself. Isaac St. Charles, thanks. Kuma better have a happy ending. Marry Bonnie at the... What the fuck? This is weird. And the donator is Isaac St. Charles, so I think that follows. Marry Bonnie at the end, he says. Mr. NK, thanks for the 10. People calling Dragon a fraud have negative reading comprehension. Revolutionary Army are not free pirates. Dragon is a grown-ass man running a rebellion. Exactly, it's a serious rebellion. If it was Morley/Lindbergh, he would have left them behind too. And good, he should. Because they should be ready to give their lives for this rebellion if they're serious about it. That's what the entire Revolutionary Army should be about. You know what? I'm on board with Dragon letting... Well, no. That's a really dark thing to say. I'm on board with Dragon's methods, even if it's really, really harsh and in contrast with literally every other character who I like in One Piece and what they would do. But, you know, sometimes you need a character like Dragon with a different type of organization. Runs a different ship. Gappy TV, thanks for the 2. Hard-ass stoic. Yeah, I'm interested to see what Dragon's character is really, really like. Great piece, thanks a lot. 2024, Year of the Dragon, watch him beat everyone. Oh shit, is 2024 the Year of the Dragon? That would be cool. You know what's fucked up? The Chinese zodiacs, I feel like... Hold on, let's see all the Chinese zodiacs. Like the zodiac years, right? I feel like whoever invented them should have made all the years cool. Because I think it's unfair that, like, one of the years is a dragon, but then another year is, like, the rat. I think it's unfair that some people are born in the year of the rat. You know? I'm born year of the pig, which is not that cool. Someone's born year of the sheep. And then some other people get year of the dragon, get year of the tiger. You get what I'm saying? Like, isn't that... Like, the person who made it up is just like, yeah, for the rest of your life, your year is... This is what symbolizes you, the rat. That's fucked up, isn't it? Isn't that kind of unfair? And like, how fucking lucky must you be if you're born in the year of the dragon? That's, you're just like walking around with a chip on your shoulder the entire time, like, yeah, it's no big deal. I was just born destined for badass shit. It's unfair. I don't know. Alright, moving on. Mohammed Sadeghi, thanks for the 2. W on my bunny. My Bonnie is a kidnapped child. Not happy though. Yeah, it's a tragic W, but it's a W. Jinmo Reed 255, thanks for the 5, says Morj says they're doing the morally right thing. Rest of us says we don't give a fuck about none of that. It's what's better in the end of the day. It's what's better at the end of the day. And I think it would reflect negatively again on the Revolutionary Army if they were just like, fuck it, we're gonna fuck up the whole operation for Jinny, but we didn't give a fuck about everybody else that's already suffering up there before this. JK Kane, thanks for the 5. Do you think that Luffy being the sun god will affect Bonnie's disease that is accelerated by sunlight? No, I don't think that'll affect that, because I don't think Luffy's... The sun is symbolic in Luffy's sense as far as we've seen, right? Symbolic as far as we've seen. I don't think he's literally got powers related to the sun. The sun just represents freedom, and so Luffy's powers are really about freedom rather than the sun. Teddy, thanks for the 5. Do you think Dragon would abandon Sabo as well? Yeah, maybe. I think with Sabo, it's possible that Sabo is very crucial to their operation in some sort of a way. And if, like, let's say, for example, the entire success, if whatever their grand plan is, assuming they have one, might be giving Dragon a bit too much credit here, but assuming they've got some sort of a plan, right? Let's say that some person like Sabo or Ivankov or someone is fundamental to the success of their grand plan, then they would probably have to take measures to save that person, right? It's possible that Sabo, just because of the position that he holds and everything like that, what he's in charge of, we don't know the details, but it might be like, we literally need Sabo to succeed. I don't know if that's the case or not, but who knows? Especially now that Sabo's being called the Flame Emperor and is a symbol of hope for a lot of people. It's possible that saving Sabo now would be very important to continue to spur the sense of hope and rebellion for people in the world. So I think those things matter, but ultimately I'd say that if someone's not necessary, then Dragon probably just leaves him be. I mean, like, Ivankov was chilling in Impel Down for God knows how long, right? We get the sense that Ivankov could have escaped, and we also get the sense that Morley was involved as well. But yeah, I just don't know if Dragon views anybody as indispensable. Jake Cash says, excellent video last week, Morj. Thank you. I'm glad people enjoyed that one. Jarence Rambo, thanks for the 5. Do you think Kiba, Shikamaru, and Rangaku... Kiba, Shikamaru, and Rangaku. This is such a random assortment of characters. Rangaku from, like, Bleach, mixed with Kiba and Shikamaru from Naruto. This is a random assortment. Can beat Big Mom like Law and Kid did, or outsmart her. My friend Blondie said, make more plushies, she follows you. Unfortunately, we are out of plushies, and as I explained last stream, they are... the whole process of plushie production is too much, and plushie production and marketing is too much of a pain in the ass for me to probably ever do again, unless something really big changes, or I have an idea for a really cool plushie that I really want to do. So unfortunately, they're out of stock. I might have some extra in stock somewhere, but I don't know. I don't actually know. Can they beat Big Mom like Law and Kid did? Yes, because if you all recall, Jinbei, Frankie, and Robin essentially did the same thing to Big Mom that Law and Kid did, except a lot easier. Now you might say, well, they didn't knock her out like they did. Yeah, but like if you gave them 10,000 tons of TNT like Law and Kid randomly had, then they would probably do the same thing. So I would say Kiba, Shikamaru, and Rangaku, if they were allowed to have 10,000 tons of TNT like Law and Kid did, of course, Shikamaru would easily find a way to have Big Mom blown up by the TNT. That would definitely happen. Yeah, I think any of these situations, if you throw in 10,000 tons of TNT, Big Mom is very, very defeatable by characters much, much, much weaker than her, for sure. Reo Chia, thanks for the 5. We have to remember that Luffy's crew had to be the voice of reason when Vivi went missing and Sabo was framed for murder. Yeah, because Luffy's reckless. Old Green Knees, thanks for the 2. Kuma switched bodies to a bear. Good theory or no? I don't think that happened, personally. Drek the Drek, thanks for the 10. Let's do it one more time. Just a reminder that these are fictional characters. Fiction does not equal reality. These characters are not real. There are no victims. You can write and review things you don't personally condone. Yeah. I don't know what you're saying this in reference to is the thing. Because there's several things. Are you talking about what happened to Jinny? Or are you talking about the Bonnie situation? Because, like, a lot of it depends on how things are portrayed, you know? Like, Oda's obviously portraying what happened to Jinny is very wrong. Whereas with the Bonnie situation, I don't know if Oda is aware about how potentially wrong this could be. So, I don't know. The JM Lu 11, thanks for the 5. Dragon says, don't worry, Kuma. The world government papers say that Jinny is in a happy marriage that she consented to. Jokes aside, that is in a fucked up way, it is funny. Jokes aside, totally agree, Dragon made the right call. Mr. MMF2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 13 months, man. Hey, Lorge, why do you think... Goddamn, ignoring everything that's been said so far. Hey, Lorge, why do you think Oda is making Dragon look so bad? Also, please use the shelves. The shelves shit is coming. I've ordered shit for the shelves. Don't worry. Everything will go up all at once. I don't know if by Monday, but hopefully. So it doesn't look so barren. As for the Dragon situation, I'm not going to talk about what he did this chapter because I think what he did this chapter makes total sense and is justified, and we are all just so One Piece. Like, keep in mind, if this wasn't One Piece, we're also One Piece brained, where we're so used to the idea that, like, if somebody touches one hair on a Straw Hat's head, the entire crew will just, like, throw the world into chaos and go to bat for them. And, like, same with Whitebeard, right? We're so used to, like, oh, Ace got captured. Of course the Whitebeard parts are going to roll up, etc., right? We're so One Piece brained. I think in most other, like, it's just become the norm for us. I think in most other series, right? Like, imagine a serious series like, is Attack on Titan a touchy subject right now? But you know what I mean. Like, imagine a serious series, like an Attack on Titan or Kingdom or something. Like, people don't just declare war, like Vinland Saga. Like, people don't just declare, like, full-scale, like, wars that they're guaranteed to lose against much stronger forces just to get back one of their buddies, usually. You know what I mean? Like, in other series which have, like, significant political conflicts and stuff like that, that's not really a thing. Especially when it's, like, a war plan that's been worked on for, like, years and decades, you know? It's only in One Piece that we see this sort of recklessness, where it's just like, oh, you stole one of my Stride buddies, we're going to, like, straight to the heart of the world government, we're going to declare war on the entire planet, and then we're going to get him back, which is cool. We love it in One Piece, right? Because that's just what One Piece is. Right? That's what One Piece is. Same with Whitebeard and Ace. You stole Ace. We're gonna, like, I'm gonna, like, throw me and my small little fleet basically into the jaws of the lion. We're probably all gonna get massacred, but we're gonna get our friend back. Spoilers, they did not. That happens in One Piece a lot, but, like, any other series that treats these sort of conflicts with, like, less of a grand principle type manner, like, more of a, you know, grounded characters, right? You don't really see that happening, right? Characters get captured, right? Maybe there's, like, a, you know, obviously characters are torn about it, but I don't think that happens that much, right? I don't know about Attack on Titan. I'm gonna leave Attack on Titan alone. So I might have misspoken there. I think I was thinking more so from my knowledge of Attack on Titan. I'm like, would Erwin do this, right? That's what I was thinking. So let me, sorry if I brought up Attack on Titan. Sorry if people are touchy about that. I know people don't like the ending. I don't know what the ending is. All I know is, like, I'm pretty sure Erwin would let characters get captured and stuff like that, right? If they're not essential to whatever, right? This is my remembrance. This is how I remember Attack on Titan at the very least. Maybe poor example there, but again, I think in One Piece we're just so used to characters throwing everything away, fucking shit up, etc. for the sake of a friend. Dragons just, from what it appears like, Dragon and the Revolutionary Army are more of an actual army with a mission that's bigger than themselves, and characters that are joining that army are not joining up just to be, you know, kumbaya friends or whatever. It seems like it's the Revolutionary Army and their mission first, and then, you know, their friends second, right? That's my understanding. However, Eric Terlata says Morj would never do this for lol. Eric, you don't even know. I have slandered Dragon. This is unfair. I've slandered Dragon so much in the past, and now I'm just pointing out the one time that I feel like is unfair to slander him, and people aren't buying it. I've slandered Dragon so much in the past. Who remembers the newspaper situation? Who was the #1 Dragon slanderer in the world over the newspaper situation? Me. I talked about that for weeks. and people didn't buy it. And now here Dragon's doing something that actually makes sense, that you would want a rational leader of a gigantic underground military organization to do. He's doing something that actually makes sense, and he's not being an idiot. And people are like, well, now we gotta slander this dude. It's like, no! Slander him for the newspaper shit. He sees one fucking photo. If Dragon was around in today's world, you know how many propaganda images are going around on, like, in general these days, right? In terms of what's happening right now in the real world conflict? Every fucking day you can find a new propaganda image, guaranteed, right? Imagine if Dragon was reading this shit. He would be so fucking confused. He'd have an aneurysm every day. He'd be like, oh my god, what? And I thought these were the good guys, or these were the, what is going on? He would be in a, I don't know, he would be assigned to a mental asylum or something like that, because all it takes is the barest bit of propaganda to make that dude question everything and everybody that he knows, his closest confidants. He's just like, oh my god, I don't understand anything. So, Dragon is, look, I've slandered him plenty in the past. I'm just saying for this moment where he's actually doing what he should do, I don't think now is a good time to slander him. You get what I'm saying? So, now, that being said, let's move past the newspaper situation and the not saving Jinny situation, all right? If we look at the other aspects of Dragon, which is like, why is Oda making Dragon look so bad? Oda is certainly not making Dragon look good ever, right? It's not so much he's making him look bad, it's just that, you know, like, every time, what's happened every time Shanks has shown up on panel, right? I think literally every single time Shanks has shown up on page in recent memory, he's done something pretty crazy, pretty amazing, right? Flexes some hockey, sends an admiral running away, right? Kid shows up on his island, he one-shots him, right? With Dragon, it's more like every time Dragon shows up, we're not really getting anything to get excited about, right? You can excuse everything. It's like, oh my god, Dragon read this thing in the news and he got really scared and sweaty and stuff, right? You can excuse it as like, sweat's not a big deal or something like that, or, you know, some other, like, you can kind of wave it away, but it's just every time he's showing up, there's not anything really exciting happening with him, and he often seems confused or uncertain and just generally doesn't know lots of information. I still, like, obviously I wouldn't have expected Dragon to know that Emu existed, but it, for me, was just kind of the cherry on top of, like, so many instances piling up of Dragon seeming lost and confused, and then Sabo's like, guess what? There's this guy Emu, and Sabo's explaining all this stuff. I'm like, it's just weird that Dragon doesn't know that Emu's a thing. I understand why. It's just, it's a cumulative feeling over time of just, like, what has this dude been doing for the past 20 years that he's been working on this revolution? You know what I mean? Like, where's the... It's just like, we know that he's been working hard, and we know that he's supposed to be, like, really, really strong and important and stuff, but it's kind of like, so you've been working on this project for 20 years. Where's your homework? You got to show us your work. Like, it's time to turn it in. Like, what have you been up to? Give us some reasons to feel confident in you and the things that you can do. You know what I mean? That just hasn't quite happened yet. He hasn't done anything really cool in the story yet, and he has just seemed like a kind of frazzled, semi-harassed guy every time that he's gotten some new piece of information. I am fully confident that Oda will change that by the end of the story. I don't know if Oda is aware of the way that Dragon's been shown so far, but it might just be because Oda doesn't want Dragon to steal the show too early or something, if I'm being optimistic. We might get a hard turn later down the line where Dragon just goes off doing a bunch of crazy stuff, you know? Lolo Koenig says he's having a desk off with Akainu. He is, but at least Akainu's getting mad. You know what I mean? I'd say that if every time you're shown at a desk, Dragon's not literally shown at a desk, but every time you're shown just being like the political dude in charge, I think it helps more that Akainu seems mad and frustrated that he can't do more, and we're kind of like, yeah, free Akainu, let Akainu off the chain, like, let him go nuts. Whereas with Dragon, every time we see him, it's kind of like confused and concerned, which is not as exciting. Again, I think that that's just for the time being. I think that down the line, Oda will try and surprise us by having Dragon live up to the image that he had initially. Like, let's look back at pre-time skip Dragon. Pre-time skip Dragon was badass. Like, the first time he showed up in chapter 100, it was like, who the fuck is this guy? Then Garp's telling us about, like, Luffy's mysterious father, who's a bigger name than all of the Yonko, right? Like, everybody's freaking out about Dragon way more than the Yonko, right? He looks crazy, looks intimidating, trying to overthrow the world government. That's awesome. And then we actually meet Dragon, like, we get to see Dragon, you know, post Enies Lobby, and it's like, introduced as the world's worst criminal, and I don't know, just the design is badass. He runs a very tight ship, clearly. His subordinates don't know much about him. He has this mystique about him. It's just a lot going on, right? And then the way characters talk about him during Marineford, they're like, holy shit, Dragon's son, this is crazy, Dragon's son and Roger's son. Like, they're, you know. And then post-time skip Dragon is just like, not much to go off of. Yet. Alright? Let's move on. Tala, thanks for the 2. Sad Pass, Self-Sacrifice, Nobility, Cyborg, Kuma, Sanji. I can kind of see that. Oh, actually, fuck. That is a lot of random stuff that happens to align right there. That is true. Bingledy Oop, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 13 months. Holy shit, man. I really do think everyone's just applying Luffy logic to someone who has more at stake. Saying he lost Jinny is dumb. She was leading her own squad. Yeah, I think, let's just get it straight. Like, they're not pirates, right? They're not pirates. They're not a family like the Straw Hats work or the Whitebeard Pirates work. They are, like, actual military organization. It was interesting, when Dragon was first introduced officially as the world's worst criminal, that chapter, he was... No, I think right after, actually it was post Marineford, my bad. He's talking to Ivankov, and Ivankov's like shocked that Dragon even has a son, right? And she's like, most revolutionary members were surprised to learn that their mysterious leader has, you know, red blood flowing through his veins. The Revolutionary Army is not a family. Ivankov didn't even fucking know that Dragon has a kid. Dragon's best friends don't know that he, like, best friends, his closest confidants don't even know that he has a kid. Like, I get the sense it's really all business with Dragon. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a tight group. If his, like, if other members of the Revolutionary family or Revolutionary family, slip there, Revolutionary Army are, like, surprised to learn that Dragon has a son, and supposedly the image they have of Dragon is basically this inhuman type of character who they're surprised to learn has red blood flowing through his veins, right? There's clearly a significant distance there. There's not a bond with Dragon and Revolutionary Army members, or with Revolutionary Army members and each other. Like, it's a military group. It's just the way it is. Anyway, moving along. I missed Teddy's. Hold on. Teddy says, do you think Dragon would abandon Sabo as well? No, we covered this. I think he would if Sabo's not crucial to some mission. If Sabo turns out to be revealed to be crucial to the Revolutionary Army's success in some way, then of course Dragon would do everything necessary to save Sabo. But I imagine that anybody that can be lost will be. Like, and it's not as though, let's not forget one thing, right? Let's not forget one thing. One of the Revolutionary Army's goals when they went to raid Marijoa was, who can remember? One of their 3 goals? Retrieving Kuma. That was one of their 3 goals, right? So, it's not as though they're going to drop everything and try and just wage war against Marijoa to save whoever they're going to save. But if they can, they will, retrieve a comrade, right? They also freed a lot of slaves and everything like that. They're going to do the right thing when they can. And the revolutionary members were clearly bent on saving Kuma when they had the opportunity to do so. But it's not like they're just going to rush their entire mission to launch an infiltration on Marijoa like several years early for the sake of saving one of their own. They're going to do it when they can. Eric Tolado says, so fuck Jinny then, but Kuma's cool. No, the point is that Kuma was saved in the what do you call? There's a word for it. They saved Kuma along with accomplishing several other objectives, right? So they had their primary objective, declare war, secondary objective, cut off the supplies to the world nobles, etc. And while they're there, they're of course going to try and accomplish a third objective, which is save Kuma, right? The point is, they're not going to sacrifice objectives A and B and like rush those years early to try and save Kuma or save Jinny or save one of their members just for the sake of that when it's jeopardizing everything else that they're trying to do, which is much bigger and much more important, right? But they still care, right? They still tried to save Kuma, and they did save Kuma. If Jinny was there, they would have likely added her to the list as well and saved Jinny as well. But they're not going to do just that when they also need to do A and B, which are much more important to actually freeing the world and freeing everybody. Eric says, lol, I'm memeing. My bad, Eric. I can't actually tell because because a lot of your opinions are hard to differentiate between genuine opinion and something crazy that only a hardcore Shanks fan would say. Cookie Ninja says, thanks for the 5. I think that is a fair assessment because when Bonnie turns people into babies/old people, they act like babies/old people. Flip side, it might be hard not to act like a baby when you've been turned into a baby just because you physically can't really speak and stuff. Or do much. Old people, I don't remember. We're not going to talk about that anymore. Till a later date. Let's focus on the chapter. For now. It still needs to be talked about. Just not right now. Let's get the stream likes up to 400 real quick. Shaking Water, thanks for the 5. Do you think something similar will happen to Koala? Oh shit, there's similar parallels to Koala and Jinny. Both slaves and love interests to Sabo and Kuma. I never considered that, but that would be really, really interesting. I hope not. I like Koala a lot. Koala's story is pretty crazy. I'm going to say I hope not, but that is an interesting point. Mr. NK, thanks for the 2. Hashtag Dragon did nothing wrong. Hashtag Team Reading Comprehension. I like it. Eyes96, thanks for the 5. If Saturn is really Bonnie's father, then wouldn't he be more of a pedo than Sanji or Blackbeard since they getting hate lately in regards to Bonnie? Isn't he more of a pedo? He's not attracted to Bonnie as far as we've seen. Unless you mean with Jinny, because Jinny was literally a kid at God Valley. Saturn doesn't obviously know that grown-up Jinny is the same as kid Jinny probably, but was Saturn shown to be attracted to Bonnie? I don't remember that. Titanium Dragon, thanks for the 5. If Saturn has this much stake in a character's story, would you like for the other Gorsei to have the same level of backstories you're theorizing? If Saturn being the cause of Bonnie's illness it's just a guess. I think it'd be really cool if it was the case because it ties together everything happening at Egghead quite a bit and it makes it much more impactful if Kuma finally arrives, is able to help Bonnie, is able to resuscitate Luffy. They're able to both see Saturn, the big evil that really caused the most pain in both Kuma and Bonnie's life, be defeated by Luffy. I think a lot of that would be really, really powerful. So I think it would just be very satisfying for it to be Saturn. And it also just fits. Somebody said that Sapphire is Saturn's jewel or something like that. Ushioni causes illness, things like that. So I think that that's all very, very, very much on the table. As for whether that means that the other Gorsei will have this level of involvement, I wouldn't think so. I think ultimately Saturn is getting more because he's the main boss of Egghead Island. But in general, in a standard arc when we're getting we're having to fight many, many henchmen, many, many subordinates, etc. It's just not really feasible to spend that much time on each subordinate. You get random things like Senor Pink's story, but then even then, Senor Pink, his backstory is still fairly short. It's like half a chapter. It was very impactful and memorable for us, but overall, he didn't play much of a significant role in the Dressrosa narrative, and the focus that we got was still very tight and focused. Tight and concentrated, sorry. So, I can't, I imagine that Saturn would be the upper end of what we could imagine a Gorosei's narrative influence would be. Flip side, I do think that it's very possible, as some have theorized, that one of the Gorosei betrays Imu's side, which would probably mean that Gorosei, if there is such a Gorosei, a traitor, that Gorosei would probably get a lot of story time as well. Shattered Glass, thanks a lot. What if the disease was made by Imu originally, so people of ancient times can no longer worship Nika and force them into hiding during the day? Holy shit, that's interesting. You know what that's kind of like? That's kind of like Moria. It's kind of like what Moria did to people, right? People lose their shadows. Suddenly they can't go out into the sun. Moria made them hide from the sun. That's interesting. I wonder if there's anything there. I like that point you made, though. Kihano Reeves. Thanks for the 20. Here is 20 for the dragon comment. Holy shit, thank you very much. I really, really, really appreciate that. I think it's hard for people to see how much he has accomplished because we don't really see the nations they've started revolutions in and how they've suffered. Appreciate the content, BTW. I appreciate that comment, and I appreciate it you. I will say that it would be great if Oda was able to show us some of the progress in some way, because we know Dragon's been doing this for a long time. And we even read about some things, like early on in the story, like an island being freed as they leave Arlong Park. You know, this stuff is in the news, but it would be great if we actually got to see, like, hear about some of the progress or something. We kind of just get a sense that Dragon has been doing work. But, you know, we've been following Luffy for such a short period of time, and he's already liberated so many islands, and it feels like, in a sense, Luffy has done just as much despite the world government as Dragon has in a much shorter period of time. And, you know, Sabo has obviously had a huge impact in a very short period of time. So it would be great if we got to learn a bit more about what Dragon has accomplished, but I think that would happen more so during Dragon's flashback, which I imagine is something we will get in some form, or at least worked into some other flashback. Justin Holland, thanks for the 5. Your talk about Dragon and his own priorities is spot on. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Plus, likely even there weren't enough available operatives for covert rescue. Yeah. I mean, like, invading Morj is no joke. They had to do it during the Reverie before, which was, like, a very specific period of time that they planned for a very, very long time. Bruno Cabral, thanks for the 10. Kuma climbing the red line, even better now. Dude, it's going to be crazy going back through all of Kuma's scenes. I'm so excited to read this flashback all in one go when it's done. I'm really looking forward to that. But also not just that, going back to all of Kuma's previous scenes that we've gotten from him post-time skip and pre-time skip. I think that's going to be really, really powerful. They took his freedom, childhood, parents, love, humanity, and free will. And he is defying the heavens one last time. Yeah, Kuma climbing the red line one last time. That's going to be a hard scene when we read it again. Move over Jinbei, Kuma best warlord and dad. Kuma is a crazy, well-written, well-developed character and concept by Oda. I think he's definitely lived up to all of the anticipation we had with how long Oda was teasing Kuma's true story, for sure. Lived up to it and surpassed it. Because, like, Kuma, the backstory has already surpassed certain bounds that I expected for One Piece backstories. And it's taken on a new layer. Like, it's gone to another level. And I talk about that in next week's Tuesday video, so watch out for that. But I'm really, really impressed with this backstory. One thing I'll say is that I was worried that I would never cry reading a One Piece backstory again, because I do YouTube content, so I have to read everything week to week, right? I have to but I try to keep, like, technically I don't have to, but, you know, I do this, so I keep up with everything week to week. And one of my concerns was that if I keep up with every chapter week to week, I had myself convinced in my head that for a full backstory to really hit me hard, I would have to be able to binge the whole thing, right? So in the past, when anytime a backstory would happen in One Piece, when I was a weekly reader, before I did YouTube, right? If a backstory started, I would take a break from One Piece, let the backstory accumulate, and then read the whole thing in one go. And that's what would get me emotionally moved. Once I started covering One Piece weekly, as a YouTuber, I was just like, well, I'm never going to be able to feel those emotions again, because I was just like, it won't work. Like, there's no way I can read a weekly chapter. I would need to read a backstory in its full flow to feel the full emotion. I don't think just getting it 1 week at a time will do enough. The fact that this chapter is already, like, it's such a hard-hitting chapter for me just on its own, by itself, I'm like, oh my god, like, when I get to read this full backstory all in one go, I could easily see it taking my favorite spot as, like, my favorite backstory in all of One Piece. And I didn't think I would ever say that after Robin's backstory. Lucky Man, thanks for the 10. Kuma constantly finding and losing happiness is just pure suffering. Puts it over Law and Robin for me. It's interesting you say that. I talk about that very specifically. Next Tuesday's video is a very good one, I think, in my opinion. But I think it breaks down a lot of what Oda does with his backstories quite a bit. Like, very frequently. And goes into some of the things I think people are maybe not consciously realizing about what he's doing very, very differently with Kuma's backstory to elevate it further. Even Brook only lost happiness once and endured 50 similar years. Yeah, watch out for next Tuesday's video. You will like it a lot. Jordy B, thanks for the 7. I listened to your streams while climbing mountains in Canada. Holy shit, that's crazy. That's pretty cool. Giant robot is spaceship climbed red line because equator plus height is best launch location. Holy shit, you think it goes to the moon or something like that? That'd be pretty cool. Cigar Verg, thanks for the 5. Everyone scale Garp and Gragon's morals and fraud thing in comparisons to Luffy's morals. Luffy didn't base his morals on Monkey Family, but on Shanks's. That's true. It's very different. Like, Garp's morality comes from a marine standpoint. Dragon's comes from a revolutionary standpoint. Luffy's comes from a pirate philosophy. And Luffy, he's not a hero at the end of the day. Luffy, when he goes out of his way to save people that he cares about and does grand things, it is usually for the sake of a select few people. You have cases like Wano where by the end Luffy is fighting for the entire country, but most cases it's like Luffy is tied to one person in particular, and then he will do a lot for them, right? Whereas it seems like with Dragon it's something like Luffy's tied to one person, he will do a lot for them, which in turn happens to do a lot for a bunch of unrelated people, right? Like Luffy fought on Vivi's behalf, which ended up saving Alabasta, right? With Dragon, it's the opposite, where it seems like Dragon in the first place is fighting for everybody, and he will fight. It's like he will make efforts for his individual allies like Kuma and stuff like that when he can, but he's putting everybody first, if that makes sense, right? So Luffy fights generally for the people close to him, which out of consequence tends to help a lot more people, but Dragon his goal is to help all these other people first in the first place, and if in the process of doing so he can also help the people that he cares about, he seems to be willing to do that as well, right? That's kind of what we saw with the Kuma situation. With first and foremost, it was about sabotaging the world government, declaring war against the world government, freeing slaves, but in the process of doing so, if they could also retrieve their friend Kuma, Dragon would definitely do that. So I think it's just coming from two different perspectives. The Daddy Longshaft, thanks for the 5. Jinny was a military asset. Communication is as important as navigation. Interesting. Kuma has the one power to bypass geography. Fisher Tiger did that by himself. Yeah. I mean, Fisher Tiger had to climb it still. Jinny was a military asset, but apparently not so important that they needed to save her. But that is a really good point. Sailing South, thanks for the 5. So many dumbass super chats always derailing interesting discussion, including this one, lol. Regular chat is better takes. That's funny. Including this one. Alright. Crow Straygot, thanks for the 10. Always good to see you, man. Evening Morj. How would you rank the 7 OG Warlords' significance to the story so far, including their potential narrative? That is a phenomenal question. That is a really hard one to answer. 7 original. I feel like that's really hard. The Warlords turned out to be so significant, right? Because on one hand, you've got Mihawk, obviously, Zoro's goal, right? Always going to be very relevant to the story. But he can be inconsequential to most significant narrative matters for a long period of time, right? Like, this is the first time with Cross-Guild that he's actually important to the events of One Piece, I would say. And we still haven't really seen to what degree, because Cross-Guild still hasn't done that much yet, right? They've put the fire under the Marines' asses, but they haven't changed the plot too much from what we've seen and felt from the Straw Hats end, right? So Mihawk, interestingly, despite being by far the strongest and probably the most important in the grand scheme of the world, so far he technically hasn't influenced the narrative of One Piece too much just yet. I would say Mihawk and Hancock are actually on the lower end of how much they've influenced the story, because, like, not because they're not significant, but just, like, look at the competition. Like, Jinbei is literally one of the Straw Hats at this point, right? He's one of the Straw Hats. He saved Luffy's life over the course of Marineford. Again, like Fishman Island, Whole Cake Island, like, he's been so significant. Like, he's just been in so many arcs at this point. He's a Straw Hat, right? So he's a main character. Moria was an arc boss. I don't know how much you value that. It's really hard to say with Moria. I'd put Moria on the lower end too. I can't rank, like, because Moria had more significance in his specific arc than ultimately like Mihawk and like more significance, more impact. He's had more screen time than Hancock and Mihawk, but they're probably a little bit more important overall in the narrative than Moria. Moria, you could kind of almost cut him and not that much of the story changes. So maybe Moria's towards the very bottom. Crocodile, if his story is still going, he formed Cross Guild and stuff, he's technically, I'd say he's more important than Mihawk in terms of overall impact of the story. I think when all is said and done, Mihawk will be more important, but so far, Cross Guild exists because of Crocodile, plus Crocodile was the arc boss of Alabasta, plus the Marineford Impel Down involvement, which was greater than Mihawk's. I'd say so far, Crocodile would put above Hancock, Mihawk, and Moria. Then Jinbei above Crocodile. Doflamingo's fucking huge. Doflamingo probably tied with Crocodile. Maybe higher. I don't know. It's hard to gauge at this point. And then Kuma might pass everyone except Jinbei by the time everything is all said and done. But I think we need a bit more time with Kuma to fully understand exactly his full role in the story. But I mean, Kuma, like, he saved the entire Straw crew. He created the 2-year time skip. Like, Kuma created the 2-year time skip. You could argue that he's already more important than... And we don't know what he's about to do at Egghead, which it's likely going to be hugely related to the Egghead Island incident. It's hard to gauge Kuma. I think he could... Like, it's going to be hard to pass Jinbei because Jinbei's a Straw Hat, but he might end up second. I don't know how to pronounce this name because it seems like it's in Japanese, and if it's not Japanese but a different Eastern language, then I'm sorry. But thanks for the 2. And then your comment is also in that same language, and I don't speak that, unfortunately. Wait, let me try and copy pasting it. What if I paste it into Google? Let me paste this shit. No, I don't know what language it is. It shows up in... Never mind. I can't do it. Mahavid Sadeki, thanks for the 2. Since it's not 10 times yet, any thoughts on Dragon? Oh my god. You know what? I have no thoughts on Dragon. I'm moving on. Justin Holland, thanks for the 10. Things were different before Luffy/Joy Boy came along. He is the game changer people have secretly been waiting for. Yep. Foresee father and son meeting to discuss plans for Final War this arc or next. I hope at this point that Luffy and Dragon's meeting is later down the story. I kind of want to see Luffy's story as a pirate slowly come to a close. Like, you know how Shanks and Luffy, that was chapter 1, and Dragon and Luffy, that was chapter 100. I kind of view that as the natural order of things. Like, let Luffy and Shanks' story kind of, like, so far Shanks is the father figure. He's the one that Luffy's kind of chasing. And I think around the time Luffy reunites with Shanks will be the time that it's close for Luffy to finally become Pirate King and stuff like that and find One Piece. So I'd like to see that side of the story close. And then I view Dragon as kind of like when it's time for Luffy and Dragon to meet, it will likely be shortly before the even bigger thing, which is freeing the world from these Celestial Dragons. You get what I'm saying? I think that these are the 2 things that kind of have, like, Luffy has to become Pirate King, and then it's like a step further, Luffy has to bring the dawn of the world and become Joy Boy, right? I think Luffy and Shanks' storyline kind of ties together towards the end of Luffy's story journey to becoming Pirate King, and then Luffy and Dragon's storyline kind of intersects when it's time for the next step of Dawn of the World and Joy Boy. I would be perfectly happy with Dragon making his connection reunion with Luffy far earlier than that. Totally happy with that. That's just the feeling that I have based on kind of the flow of the story so far, the steps left in Luffy's journey, and the manner in which Shanks and Dragon have kind of been portrayed in terms of like their narrative roles, and like kind of in relation to Luffy, what stage it seems right for Luffy to meet each of them. I don't know. 02657, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 3 months, man. You may have already touched on this, but why is everyone seemingly okay with the drawing not being finished? One panel is undecipherable. It ruined the impact behind the emotional scenes. So I will say one thing. which is that I there was a one panel in the church scene where I literally couldn't make out what it was. It turned out to be Jinny's foot, but I had a lot of difficulty making out what it was. And I will admit that like it's a panel, like Kuma's having flashbacks, and we get a panel where I really couldn't understand what it was. It was Jinny's foot, okay? And I will admit that it did break up the flow of my enjoyment of the flashback, like the emotional experience for a moment, because I had to like really pause and like try and make out what that was. I was like, okay, let me ignore it. I'll move past it. Then I was like, no, but what if it was important? I went back and I did. It took me like, it took me like a few dozen seconds to try and, like, it took me a couple takes, I guess, of like looking at it and being like, what the fuck, to figure out what it was. And I think I would say that did, in a minor way, affect my enjoyment of the flashback. But overall, it was an extremely emotional chapter for me, despite that. Like, that's a little speed bump, like road bump or hiccup or whatever you want to say. The reason that I believe, and I talked about this towards the beginning of the stream, that it's not a big deal whatsoever that Oda had some sketchy drawings here is because I think the reason that he had to cut some corners in this chapter is because he put so much effort into the panels that seemed important to him, which were the panels actually showing Kuma holding Jinny, etc., because Oda went so hard on the shading of light and shadow in each one of those panels. So obviously you've got that big panel where Kuma's saying, you can rest now, Jinny. He's holding her in front of the cross. There's so much light streaming into the church. The shading in that panel is far more meticulously done than anything you ever normally see in a One Piece chapter. This is outside Oda's usual wheelhouse. And he was applying the shading to pretty much every chapter that showed Kuma in the church, holding Jinny. And even the chapter where he's in front of her grave. So I don't think that the sketchiness was Oda being lazy or something. I think it's more so he tried to, like, this was a very, very important emotional chapter. So Oda tried to go absolutely all out artistically, going beyond what he usually does, likely going beyond his, what I imagine to be his comfort zone, having been drawing One Piece the same way for dozens and dozens of years at this point. I think that he went a bit above and beyond his usual, like what he can usually fit in as an artist in the span of a 1 week time frame to draw these chapters. And because he went so hard on making certain panels as artistic as possible, right? As artistic, as poetic, whatever as possible. Ultimately, he still only gets the same amount of time to do the chapter. He still only gets a week. So he probably just did not have quite enough time to finish out certain other panels that were maybe not quite as important in his estimation. So it's just the way it is. Like, you have a week still to draw it. He went for something very ambitious artistically this chapter. And because he still only got the same amount of time, he ultimately had to, like, a few other parts of the chapter suffered art-wise. This is a lot of me making assumptions, but I'm just calling it like I see it, which is like, we know that he does not do this usual level of attention to detail and shading when it comes to light and shadow. This is something that he tends to only do with Kuma when Kuma's sitting under the sun and stuff like that. It happens a few other times in the story. I can think back to Fishman Island, especially when they first come upon Fishman Island. It does happen a few other times in the story, but it's really a Kuma exclusive thing for the most part. And this chapter, he really just went all out with it. So, you put in a ton of work in one area, which means that maybe you just don't get quite enough time to finish out some other areas. And that's just the way it is. Luckily, the volume cover will probably fix this. So, or not volume cover. The volume version will fix this. So at some point, there will be an updated version of this chapter. But I get what you're saying, which is that, like, you don't want to be in the middle of a very emotional scene and then it's like you're trying to understand what was drawn there. But I have no problem with, like, the earlier stuff is him talking to, I mean, even that, the problem is the whole chapter is pretty emotional, so it's like, where do you cut a corner, really? But he did the best that he could, I think. I don't think it's a problem, personally. Red Agrid, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 2 months. Chapter 595, Akainu said he got the chills when Bonnie escaped. Aside from losing a hostage to keep Kuma online, is there a darker reason why the world government would want her? So for me, the longest time I thought that the reason for that was just because Bonnie has the age fruit, and I assumed that Bonnie was doing something to keep maybe the Gorosei or something like that youthful. But I don't know if that's that important at this point in time, especially now that we know that the age effects wear off. But maybe because they wear off, that's why they always need Bonnie. It's tricky to say. I don't know with that. Maybe it's also possible that with they needed her as leverage to keep Kuma in line, but Kuma had already become a full-fledged cyborg at that point. So I really, really don't know. I think that's really hard to say. I really don't know with the Bonnie thing. So I think there's one more twist to come. I think there's got to be one more twist to come. 02657, thank you very much for gifting 10 memberships. Everybody say thanks. Thank you for rolling in and just gifting a bunch of memberships so many times. Really appreciate it. I guess a chapter like this, feeling a good mood. I do as well. Wade Turner, Legio Panda, Skylar H, Emil Martinez, Bugas, Vitor, Matos, Whitaker, T-Stu, Cash, and Sway Shocks. Everybody say thank you to 02657. Always appreciated, man, for sure. And let's get the stream likes up to 400 real quick. Sorry, continuing on. Justin Holland. No, we covered this. Bruna Cabral, thanks for the 10. Dragon risking everything to save Jinny would be like Eisenhower sending all the soldiers in Europe who are fighting against the Nazis to the Pacific just because his nephew was kidnapped there. I would say it's not quite that, but it's along the lines of the same sort of thinking, right? I think that's a bit more extreme or specific, but the mentality is basically, yeah, it's the same. It's a war. You can't be making concessions for certain individual people that you care about. Yeah. Angel, thanks for the 10. Morj, I'm so sad, bro. The whole jewelry part, yeah. There's so many small pieces that came together this chapter, which is like jewelry, Bonnie. If you could go anywhere in the world, like if you could go on a trip, where would you like to go? So many small little things are clicking in the saddest way. Seeing Bonnie get uplifted about her disease, yeah. That's so fucked, because this is really fucked up to say, but it's kind of like, it basically with Bonnie, we're looking at the equivalent of, a kid with cancer, or a kid with leukemia or something like that, right? You don't know how to tell them, and now they think something. They think that they're going to be okay. It's a really fucked up situation. Like, this whole chapter from start to finish is just too raw, too real. It's too close to real things that happen, Like, and that might be a ridiculous thing to say, but like, I don't know. Like, One Piece has gone dark before, but this is stuff that feels very, very close to, oh, somebody I know, this or that or something. Like, Jinny being, like, raped, right? Bonnie growing up with this. Like, it's very, very... It's just a breaking new ground for sure with where the series has gone. I think Bonnie might be the child who joins the crew and not Tama. Bonnie being a child is an L. That is an L, as we have discussed. As for Bonnie joining the crew, yeah, because Cabin Girl is an actual position that she could join for sure at this point. Many people thought that she could join, or like the crew needed cabin boy, cabin girl, and Bonnie does seem very possible. Not a Pro 64, thanks for the 5. I think Saturn cursed her because of her Buccaneer friend/lover. Don't think he was the Celestial that wifed Jinny, but connected to the illness. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Because Saturn probably remembered, oh, that Buccaneer kid that saved all those slaves back then. Maybe. It's possible. Old Green Knees, thanks for the 5. I meant S-Bear, not a bear. I was just like, I don't even fucking understand what you're talking about. You're saying Kuma switches his personalities with a fucking bear? Fuck, S-Bear is so sad now. Kuma switched into S-Bear. Good theory or not. Big fan, bro. Thank you, I appreciate it. Old Green Knees, I recognize you. I've seen you so many times. You still think Smoker is crew. Hey, I would love for it to happen. At this point, I'll just take Smoker coming back into the story at all. But if he shows up, I still think there's a chance. Hashtag VV agenda. VV's already part of the crew. Leave her be. She's already part of the crew. Anyway, as for S-Bear and Kuma switching into S-Bear, I think Kuma's story is a lot more powerful if it ends with it. Like, if the consequences that he's faced are, if they hold up. So he's given up his mind. He's given up his body. He's basically chosen to give up everything. I would love for him to see him get one last meaningful sacrifice and go out happy, but I still think it's much more powerful if he does, in fact, go out. If he does ultimately sacrifice everything, including his life, in the process of all this. Just because that's who his character is, it fits better. It fits the messaging better, I think. Obviously, if Oda wants to keep Kuma alive, he'll keep him alive. It would hit less hard for me, but I can understand a lot of readers would just prefer to see that. I get it. Esper does exist. Yeah, maybe a personality swap or something like that. Who knows? Esper is also a randomly interesting character now, because we know so much about Kuma's personality. And now we know that Esper has that same personality ingrained into him. I wonder if we see, like Bowen Hancock Seraphim loved Luffy. Could the Esper Seraphim love Bonnie like a father figure again or something? Like, I don't know. It's weird to think about. Obviously, it'd be a different dynamic, but TY, thanks for being a member for this. I'm saying this is if there's no personality switch. I'm saying just looking at Esper, it's an interesting character now. TY, thanks for being a member for 13 months. The face on the Denden Mushi was so sad. Yeah, even just that alone, and I think that's the only time we really get to see Jinny's face this chapter. Am I crazy? Maybe because of the art, I'm not sure. In some spots, it's just, yeah, yeah. Supersonic Squad, thanks for the 5. I think Dragon having some iffy moments could be intended to contrast Luffy, to show that Dragon can't be the savior like Luffy is. Also, you missed my last chat. Oh shit, hold on, let me see. I'm sorry, let me take a look. I don't see something from you earlier. Oh no, I do. Fuck. Sorry, I had to scroll a bunch. My bad. Supersonic Squad first said, my guess is Kuma gets Vegapunk to clone Bonnie's body without the disease. Oh, and then pushes her memories or her soul into that one. You think that makes sense? I do think that that's a really good theory. I like the idea of Kuma having to make a bargain with the Celestial Dragons more, but I like that idea. Maybe they direct him to Vegapunk. Who knows? Like, maybe the Celestial Dragons are like, well, we can't cure it, but if you give us your body and mind and everything like that to use as a lab experiment, then we'll give you access to our scientist Vegapunk, who can probably do something for you. So I really like the idea that, and I hope it happens, that Kuma had to make a deal with the Celestial Dragons to find a way to cure Bonnie. But Vegapunk being the one involved who was able to make it happen, I think would fit very well as well. Moving back. So you were also saying, so you think, yeah, Dragon having some iffy moments could be contrasting with Luffy to show that Dragon can't be a savior. Yeah, but I definitely think that that's something that will matter down the line, but I don't think that Oda intends to make Dragon just look overall like he has, like the way he does things doesn't have value, and that he as a character just doesn't have that much to offer other than being a contrast for the right way to do it, which is Luffy. So I'd like to think that we get to see a lot of Dragon's successes, or him being effective, or his way actually having merit over the course of the next however many arcs we have, basically, or whatever arc we could have that's kind of going to be the one that where he gets to shine, Teddy says, Dragon is dumb. He lost Jinny and her skills for intel gathering and just a resourceful individual in general. Makes no sense. I mean, we don't know how much they valued Jinny's skills over, you know, how do I say this? Like, yeah, she had a valuable skill, but we don't know to what degree does that skill matter versus potentially jeopardizing their entire timeline for when they actually want to declare war against the Celestial Dragons, when they actually want to try invading Marishua, etc. Because from the dialogue that we gotten in the story before this, we got the sense that the assault that they did at the Reverie, right, at Marishua, right, where they declared war, where they went after the food supply for the Celestial Dragons and essentially like barricaded them in. That assault, it seems like this is something that they've been planning for a long, long, long time. Like in every phone call, Den Mushi call that Dragon had before this, it's like they're planning and planning for the Revolutionary Army to finally gather all of its forces from across the world to make its move. So it's kind of like it's fairly clear that there's a much bigger picture that was being slowly put together. And while Jinny does have clearly a useful skill, which is intel, it seems as though that's not something that's anywhere close to as important as like waiting for the proper time to go at Marishua, which was still years down the line, which they didn't feel ready to do just yet. Tom, thanks for the 5. Love the vids, but I feel like you don't make big theories like you used to, like Shanks and Elbaf raid failing and Big Mom in Wano. Any reason? Don't say the egg. Well, let's take a quick look. Okay, I get what you mean by big theories, because I've definitely made theories recently, but they have been probably towards the smaller side, which is like, talked about like how I think Saturn dies in Egghead. I talk about, I talked about what I think Emu's, the true world of One Piece is buried under the sea. I think that's a good one. You should check that one out. But maybe not one as crazy as like, or like large scale as like the raid will fail, Shanks, Elbaf, Big Mom going to Wano. Maybe not something quite like that as of late. So I would agree. But I also think you can't force those things, you know? It's just like, if I think it's true, if something feels like it seems as though it's set up or something like that, then I can come up with it. Otherwise, I'm not going to try and force something that doesn't seem like it's based off of anything to me. But I appreciate you saying that, because it does make me think. I'm like, could I be doing like a really big theory right now? I don't know. Will, thanks for the 5. They did go to Marishua because of one of their comrades. Kuma was one of the reasons, but not exclusively the reason. That was just one of the 3 objectives that they were trying to accomplish. I doubt that they would do that whole plan just to get Kuma back. Because Kuma's been, doing shit as a Shichibukai for like a while now, and he was essentially a slave by the time, like 2 years ago, right? He was a full-fledged slave as of 2 years ago, although he was at Saboti and everything at that point in time. Like, there just wasn't, it clearly wasn't a priority for the Revolutionary Army for a long time to be getting Kuma, like getting back in contact with Kuma, getting him safe, etc. But it's something that they will definitely do if they have the opportunity, is what it looks like. Arm Eunice, thanks for the 20, man. Just wanted to comment on the live action. My brother who clowns on anime and manga loved the live action. Yeah, there's so many. It's so crazy how the live action is just something that is so easily digestible and normal for so many people who would never touch anime and manga. He actually got my 59-year-old dad to watch, who also really enjoyed it. That's awesome. Said it was super heartfelt and cozy, lol. It really is. The live action gets that across as well. I still will never think it's like as well written by any means, or like as nuanced and or anything like that as the actual One Piece manga, but it is the perfect vehicle to transport the feel of One Piece over to non-anime manga fans, basically normal people, normies, right? Eric Terlato donating some Australian dollars. No idea how much those are worth. But I'll pretend that they're almost the same as real dollars. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Saturn clearly gets destroyed by Nika or Kuma, right? I think by Luffy. I personally think that Kuma does something. I definitely think that Kuma helps revive Luffy, because that's just something that's highlighted. Like, Kuma removing people's pains, etc. I wouldn't be surprised if Kuma removes Luffy's pain, and then takes it, which would be crazy considering everything that Kuma's already gone through. And then I think one of the most important things for Kuma to see before he potentially dies would be Nika bringing freedom, saving his daughter Bonnie, kicking Saturn, the evil celestial dragon's ass, and basically just everything that Kuma has envisioned, imagined, dreamed of as a boy. He gets to see that coming true after a lifetime of tragedy. I think that would be really, really powerful. I think it would be extremely powerful if that's Kuma's final moments and that's what he gets to see on the way out, because it would be very tragic but still bittersweet in a way. So that's what I hope to see happen. But at the end of the day, I think it's got to be Nika or it's got to be Kuma taking out Saturn. I remember for a long time people were like, it'll be cool if Dragon shows up or something like that. I think no. I think storytelling-wise, right, we want it to be either Kuma himself, but most likely, I think, and more importantly, just for cohesion of ideas, I think it should be Nika, right? Japanese Jim, thanks for the 2. The good guy Order 66 gonna hit. Kuma face revenge. You think that's gonna happen? Like the good guys are gonna order? Like you're saying all the allies across? I literally can't understand your full comment here. Kuma face revenge. Kuma face revenge. What does that mean? I'm sorry. I think I'm a little lost on your comment a little bit. Good guy Order 66. You think like basically Revolutionary Army or like Straw Hat allies around the world are gonna go off? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure. Shuki, thanks for the 5. Morj, did you ever think Oda would heavily imply rape within the One Piece world? Not to this degree. I know people used to say Boa Hancock, but I was like, that's the furthest it'll go. I definitely did not think to this degree. Definitely not. This is something new. New level. Javon Johnson, thanks for the 5. Egghead is top 3. Will likely be top 3 One Piece for me. Recency bias be damned. How do you think this arc will rank among the best for you? Like all things, the ending really, really matters, but it is currently my favorite post-time skip arc, without a doubt. And I really got to let it play out. But I could easily see it being... I know it's not gonna pass Enies Lobby or Marineford for me. I know that. So that's the only thing I'm confident of. I know it will not pass Enies Lobby or Marineford simply because, not because the writing in it isn't top tier, and not because it hasn't had, you know, a shit ton of innovative, brand new storytelling elements or ideas addressed that we haven't seen in One Piece. Not that it hasn't reached certain emotional heights, but simply because Enies Lobby and Marineford are very expansive storylines with, you know, a tremendous amount of build up. There's just many layers and story threads coming together there with each of them. They're just much more grand and ambitious storylines, basically. I don't think Egghead will quite reach those for me, because at the end of the day, this is a very... It's not short anymore, actually, now that I think about it, but it is a much tighter, more focused storyline. And it ultimately doesn't focus that much on the Straw Hats and their emotional journey, but how much does that matter? It matters for me. Like, when I'm saying top 3, I'm saying will be one of my favorites, right? It matters for me because I think Enies Lobby was very emotional for the crew, the Straw Hats themselves, and Marineford was very emotional for Luffy, right? The character that I'm most invested in. So I think because it's lacking those factors, I think Egghead will not ever be passing those two. I definitely think that there's, based on Egghead, I definitely think arcs coming up in the final saga could pass Enies Lobby and Marineford for me, which before I was a little bit doubtful for. But now I'm just like, if the final saga is starting off like this, it could easily feature the best arcs, like my favorite One Piece arcs, period, right? Because the first arc, like if Egghead Island, I would never have fucking imagined Egghead Island would be circling my favorite, like top 3, top 5 favorite One Piece arcs. I thought it could be really good because some cool hype stuff like Vegapunk, etc. were introduced with, but I was just like, because I just thought it's a warm-up arc. I was just like, we're just getting started. But then we also thought about that about Sabaody, didn't we? Does Egghead rank above Sabaody for me? I think let's let it finish, but I could easily see Egghead passing Sabaody, and I have Sabaody really high. Egghead could get to top 3, 4, 5. Like, because my favorite arcs are basically Enies Lobby, Marine Ford, Alabasta, Arlong Park, Saboti. I could easily see Egghead cracking, beating Saboti, and then continuing up the chain. Easily. Like, it's too early for me to call it. It's too early. Too early for me to call it. Because I might just be like, oh, it's already there, but I don't know. I am behind on supers. Let me catch up a bit. But sometimes when I get an interesting question, I just want to think about it. Abdullah Al-Remeheti. Thank you so much. Holy shit. What if Toki sends characters during her 800 jumps to the future that will arrive before the last war? And Momo was the last that she sent before she dies. Some will be from Or's era, and others will be from Old Wano or some Joy Boy Nakamas. Holy shit, that's a really, really interesting idea. Think about that. If Toki's just been traveling through time, from period to period, just meeting characters that she thinks are significant and teleporting them to the future, that'd be crazy. Just teleporting them to the future one by one, like the ones that she thinks will change the world. And then, like, we're at the final war and we just get this random lineup of, like, great figures throughout history. Samurai Ryuma's there or something like that. That'd be insane. That's a really cool theory. Ben, thanks for the 2. The Revolutionary Army flag in this chapter looks like Emu. Is this the first time that we've seen the Revolutionary Army flag? It's not, right? It looked different, I thought. Or maybe I'm not remembering it. I guess I just didn't remember it properly. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's kind of weird for me to see. 02657, thank you for the 20. And I'll take my W, he says, for being part of the Bonnie as a child camp. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that camp was growing fairly quickly. And the people who weren't part of that camp were more so just, we didn't want it to be the case. But, you know, if you put a gun to my head, like, last week, I would have been like, yeah, Bonnie's probably going to turn out to be a kid. Also, Crocomon. Yeah, good call on Crocomon, I agree. Legio Panda, thank you so much. What? I don't even know what currency this is, but this is a... Hold on. What the fuck? Okay. What about Kuma's Bible mentioning the sky? Just how much info is contained in that book? Yeah... You know what? Maybe it's like a bunch of interesting places. And that's how he knows where to send all of these characters when he's teleporting them. I don't know. Maybe one day we get to open Kuma's Bible. And like... Well, I don't know. It's like a One Piece version of a Bible, right? So we don't really know what the details of it are. Redstone Days, thanks for the 5. Almost at 200k. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, it's probably not too far off. Congratulations with content. Want a video perchance? Yes. Perchance, yes. I did talk about that recently in the most recent Pirate King Tier podcast, why that's still taking so long. But the long and short of it is just like, I need a free week to finish writing it, pretty much. If I get a free week to finish writing it, then, like, that week will come at some point, but I'm not in super control of the way things go, basically. So, because I do stuff outside of YouTube, so for me it's just when I can get a free week. That's basically the way it is, which I think I can do hopefully before the end of this year, but that's just what it is. So I don't want to say it's out of my hands, because obviously it's not. It's in my hands, but I think I can do it hopefully by the end of this year, but I don't know. The Practical One, thanks for the 10. Morj, part of the frustration with Dragon is that we don't even see him react. Yeah, I could see that. We saw Kuma vent his frustration. With how long Oda saves Dragon by the time he moves, it might be too late for people. That's true. Because Dragon has been shown to be emotionally affected by things in the past, but he didn't seem to care much with the Bonnie situation. Or sorry, Jinny situation. Let me take a look at his expressions again this chapter. And I would agree that that is not a good look. Yeah. Yeah. Because he's been shown to care before. I think with Dragon, I'm trying to think of an equivalent example of a character that we didn't like. You know, there's lots of characters where it's like maybe they come off as too weak for some period of time, but then Oda makes them look really badass. That's easy to fix. Dragon's case is different because it's like it's not that he's weak. It's just that he's not shown. I think I can't. I think people don't like his reactions to things quite a bit. Like sometimes it's like, oh, he's too shaken up by this, or seems too confused or too uncertain, and then other times it's like seems too unemotional, unfazed, and other times it's like he's too agitated about this. I think it's just like a recurring trend of people always like just something always feeling a little bit off or unimpressive or like not likable, I suppose, about Dragon's reactions to things and the emotional states the various emotional states that we see him in. So I could definitely understand that. I could definitely see that. Yeah. 02657, thanks for the 5. How do I pitch in for the PS5 giveaway? I don't know how to reach out to Discord or elsewhere. There's no PS5 giveaway, but I appreciate you pitching in for the hypothetical, but there is no PS5 giveaway. I didn't know. I don't know. There was a super chat about that before, but it was never something that I was ever going to make official. I don't want to have to do a giveaway, really. That's a whole thing. But, you know, maybe I have to look into how giveaways work. I mean, they seem very simple, right? You just give something away. It's what, like people put their name in like a lottery or something like that, and then I give something away. I don't want to do that, but maybe. I don't know. Umair Ula, thanks for the 2. All this needs to build up to Kuma seeing Gear 5th Luffy. Yes, definitely, I agree. A's96, thanks for the 5. Morj, do you think Kuma is going to crack a smile seeing Nika again before passing? Yes, it is very rare in general, even with the saddest deaths, that Oda does not give them a smile to die about. Give them a smile as they're dying. And with Kuma, I think he will have something specific to smile about, which would be seeing Nika, which he's always dreamed of seeing since he was a kid, right? Or even doing the dance as the drums start playing. Oh, the dance. The dance. I think seeing Nika doing the dance would fit. I don't know if Kuma's gonna have the energy to do the dance himself, but who knows. Again, somebody donated in a language that I don't understand. It is clearly something Eastern Asian, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the 10. I appreciate whoever can understand that. Maybe you want to translate, but I don't know what it is. But thank you. Henchme976, thanks for the 2. Is it time to delete all Bonnie hentai now? Sad. I mean, I feel like you shouldn't have that anyway, but there's certain things you can't delete, which are the manga chapters themselves, which already show Bonnie in rather compromising positions. Supersonic Squad, thanks for the 2. We can all agree Kuma and Luffy got to dance together. I think I understand people want that. I don't know if Kuma's in a dancing state right now. I don't know. But Luffy will dance. I think we'll get to see Luffy dancing in front of Kuma. Starbright, thanks for the 10. I think Oda dropped the ball with the lack of reaction between Eva and Jinny. She barely seemed to care she was kidnapped/died. Plus, no reaction to Bonnie. We just don't see much of Ivankov, but Ivankov is clearly upset. Ivankov is upset. But yeah, with Jinny being stolen, we can't. Our hands are full. Yeah, I think Ivankov was fine. Yeah. Plus, no reaction to Bonnie. That's true. I don't know. It's more Kuma focused. It's just the way it is. Japanese Jim, thanks for the 2. I meant Pacifista Order 66. Oh, Kuma Ultimate Revenge. That'd be crazy. I don't know if Kuma's able to do that, though. Have to be Vegapunk able to do that somehow, right? The Practical One, thanks for the 5. Also, building off my last comment, it doesn't help that Sabo now has more hype than Dragon Inverse. This is like if Zoro had a higher bounty. I do think it's kind of wild that, like, Sabo, after, like, just doing one thing, basically became the symbol of revolution for the entire world, while Dragon's been at it for decades and decades, and it doesn't seem like he's had the level of influence. Obviously, Dragon has objectively more influence when it comes to the Revolutionary Army, but just in terms of world influence and being a symbol of rebellion and revolution, Sabo seems to have supplanted him fairly quickly, which is kind of crazy. So, I don't know. I think I'm giving a lot of benefit of the doubt with Dragon, just because Dragon's a character that Oda has clearly planned for a long, long, long ass time. That he has given, chapter 100. It's about Dragon. He's Luffy's father. He's been holding back the story of Dragon for so long. He's positioned Dragon in like the narratively most important role in the entire story, arguably outside of the Straw Hats, right? So I believe that he's got significant things planned for Dragon, but I can understand why it seems very doubtful at this moment in time, and why it can feel like we don't have a lot to put faith in for Dragon so far. Okay, Good Life, thanks for the 10. The poneglyphs are actually people. Oh shit, yo, this is a really cool theory. Listen up, I've never heard this before. Good Life, thanks for the 10. The poneglyphs are actually people. The voice coming from them, the last remnants of sentience. Jinny somehow gets the curse, and the blue stone is that originally it was a curse made by Emu. Part 2 loading. It's a curse made by Emu. Is this going to be related to like keeping people out of the sunlight or something like that? Also, I think I will have to call stream after Good Life's next comment, just because, sorry, a bit short on time today of all days. Wish we could have talked about this chapter more, but it's just the way things are. I'll read somebody else's in the meantime. Dragon will show up in 1100. I don't know. Oh, 02657 says, yo, this is what the super chat said. Get it to Morj. Oh, great. So this is the one I couldn't understand, because it was another language. You hardly see it these days, the doctor told the group. Could it be Roger's disease? Yeah, I think everybody's thought briefly about like whether or not that's the disease. And you know what's funny? Looking up Ushioni stuff from Saturn, like Ushioni, if you go to Wikipedia, the term that keeps coming up, like it comes up several times, it's incurable illness. You get an incurable illness from interacting with the Ushioni. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is all connected. Also, if the Celestial Dragon could heal her, why did they throw her away? That's what I said initially, and then everybody in chat was like, oh, it's because they're Celestial Dragons, they just don't care. But then I also read, like if you go back to read the chapter, it's like, Jinny says, mixing up those words a bunch. What does she say? She says they didn't want me around after I got sick. I was thrown away. So that's just a little bit weird if it's like something that they can fix right away, because it implies that like they would have kept her around if she wasn't sick, And I get it, like Celestial Dragons, they're bad people. They're not gonna cure whatever. But it's like for them, it's a slave. It's like a pet that they get to have. So it's like if you're throwing it away because it got sick, but you could just fix it like that. I don't know, but I think it's still possible. I think it's still in line with what Celestial Dragons do. I think Chad convinced me of that. So, we'll see about that. And you're saying I think Saturn is Bonnie's dad. Yeah, I think a lot of people were mentioning something along those lines. I definitely think that that'd be the most interesting turn of events for Saturn to be, at the very least, very directly related to Bonnie and Jinny's illness, whether he was someone that could have cured it but didn't, or the one that caused the illness, or was the one that was Bonnie's father, the one that kidnapped Jinny in the first place. I think that just makes everything that's happening at Egghead right now so much more personal, and will make the resolution of that story so much more powerful when Saturn is ultimately defeated. Good Life, I'm waiting on the conclusion to your comment. You can just normal comment it. You don't have to super, because I do have to call stream soon. In the meantime, I'll read Breezy2X. Thanks a lot. Rank these characters. Fuck. We had such a nice stream with so many good conversations. What the fuck, man? We had such a great stream with so many clean conversations, and then you come up with this stuff. Rank these characters in strength, all in their prime. It was such a nice stream. I'm still gonna answer it. I think I've got Odin last. I think Big Mom Big Mom's just so much shit seems to fuck her up. I could see Odin fucking her up. But ultimately, you kind of got to respect her as, like, she's Big Mom. She's a Yonko. Like, Odin fucked up, like, I mean, Odin fought Kaido, scarred Kaido. Battle never came to a conclusion, but Odin was clearly at an advantageous state before he got interrupted. That was some time ago, so we can assume that Kaido probably got stronger since then. And Big Mom's basically right there with Kaido. But it's still Big Mom. So it's not quite the same as Kaido. I put Big Mom above Odin. I put Odin last. Then I take Mihawk over Big Mom. So I got Mihawk, Big Mom, Odin. And then Rayleigh. I don't know if Rayleigh's as strong as Mihawk. I'm going to say out of respect to Rayleigh. Because Rayleigh is basically Zoro before Zoro, right? I'm just going to say Rayleigh and Mihawk, call that a wash. It's a tie. Like, we'll just leave it at it's a tie. Or honestly, if we're being super respectful to Big Mom, I feel like Rayleigh, Mihawk, and Big Mom should be all basically, give or take, very tight in strength. You could maybe shuffle the order, who knows? And then Odin should be just a hair below. But if I'm ordering, then because it's Big Mom, who's just so embarrassing in so many ways, I'm putting Mihawk above Big Mom above Odin because I think I'm supposed to. And then Rayleigh, it's just, we know too little, but out of respect, I'm going to say he's right there with Mihawk. I don't know. I could see arguments from people arguing Rayleigh or Mihawk either way. The Black Sword thing is probably a big deal. But at the same time, Rayleigh is to Roger what Zoro is to Luffy. Zoro will be stronger than... Like, I imagine Rayleigh is basically a Prime Zoro, probably just a hair underneath Prime Zoro, which would basically be Mihawk, right? So, I don't know. That's my take on that. And, Good Life continues, and this will be the last super, and then I have to call stream. Part 2, the curse is ironic as the followers of the sun god being killed by the sun. Yeah, somebody was talking about that earlier in stream, and I like that idea. The remnants take their fallen allies and inscribe them. Oh, seeing the turn fully into poneglyphs. Somehow the curse gets reversed, and now Imu has to stay indoors. Oh, and that's why Imu has to hide from the sun all the time? Okay, I don't know about that part, but that part is interesting. Like, that's why Imu has to stay inside in Marijua all the time. That is interesting, though. But the thing is that the poneglyphs were spread, it seems like, right as Imu came into power, so I don't know about that, but it is a really... I'll take these as two separate things. I like the idea that this sapphire disease or whatever was something to keep people out of the sun, right, and prevent them from fighting for freedom or something along the lines, maybe concocted by the Celestial Dragons or Imu himself, maybe by Saturn, by order of Imu, who knows. I like that, irony, symbolism, etc. I like the crazy other idea that, like, poneglyphs are, like, the actual voices of people turned to stone, but at the same time, it's implied that the poneglyphs were created by the Kozuki clan, right, or established, so I don't know if they can actually literally be people, but it was something interesting to think about for a bit. Yeah, Mihawk can definitely cut Big Mom. There's no question. Alright. We're going to call it here. Alright, guys. Miss says, Morj, you would love the Ravages of Time. It has the pinnacle of character and narrative writing with a peak cast, insane battles, and mind-blowingly intricate schemes that lead into peak war arcs. I have that up because you guys told me about it last... Maybe it was you. Somebody told me about it last stream. I have it up in my list of tabs. I can show you right now. Hold on. Just pull it right over. I still have it up. So I will read this at some point. All right, everybody. This was a fun stream. I think no toxic discussion whatsoever because the chapter was so good. I think we should appreciate this. We're in the middle of maybe the best flashback in One Piece. Maybe in the one of the best arcs of One Piece. For some people, it might be their favorite by the time all is said and done. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.